Relax. You gotta just chill out, man.
Pittsburgh Steeler fans, welcome back to another episode of the Scho Bro Show. This is Steel Curtain Network editor Dave Schofield coming at you. Oh, it's much after 9 p.m., but that's all right. We're ready. We're anticipating it. The Steelers report to training camp tomorrow. Where else would you rather be as a Steelers fan? And with me, as always, except when he's not, is my big brother, Rich. Rich, sorry I was running late tonight, but how are you doing tonight?
Football season is upon us. That's how I'm doing.
Yeah. I'm excited. At the same time, I'm like, okay, now the work's going to get started because I've got these trackers to do from now until the middle of August. And I can't wait for training camp to get here. And then I'm going to be like, man, I'm going to be glad when those are done. I still like keeping up on the Steelers, but that just adds a little bit extra stress level. But hey, sorry, I was running a little bit late tonight. I've been soloing it here. My wife has my two older kids at an amusement park today, up at Hershey Park in Hershey, PA, if anyone's ever been there. Unfortunately, my son got sick before they even arrived, so they've had a miserable day. But at least it didn't rain. And you know what? It's been busy, but I'm so excited about this coming tomorrow. So much so, I almost wanted to bust into a full version of "'Twas the night before training camp." All across the globe, Steelers Nation was excited for what would happen in Latrobe, but I didn't want to really go any further than that.
Good.
Yeah, it's exciting just because it's interesting because there's still different levels that we're going to cross. Because tomorrow they report, they report. We got stuff. We got Coach Tomlin talking. We have players that are there and bonding, but they didn't take the field. Then will be Thursday. They're on the field. They're there for practice. This is great and everything. And then we're like, yeah, but they're not in pads. And then next thing you know, there'll be pads. And before we know it, pretty sure it's your wife and daughter will be there for the first preseason game. It's really not all that far. So one thing I can say for sure is there's been a lot of different news coming out from other NFL teams that have reported at training camp about guys ending up on active PUP. Man, there was even a reserve PUP, which meant they were done for the season, but that was with the Saints, but they kind of knew that was coming. You've got guys on the non-football injury list. You've got all kinds of various things. Oh, there was did not report / retired. Various different things, kind of hoping that tomorrow just kind of, comes and we see all the cool reports of players showing up and then it's kind of over with. And hopefully we don't get into all of that.
That would be nice.
So I've got to ask, Rich, are you heading to Latrobe this year?
Probably not.
Okay. I know it was off.
Probably.
Then it was
probably
on.
Not. Yeah.
And then it was off again.
Yeah, probably not going to be able to squeeze it in, but I don't know. On the bright side, I could, wake up on a Wednesday and say, "Hey, Friday, I'm going." Who knows?
Yes. So you're not planned,
correct?
But it could be happening. It could be happening. So, hey, is there anything else we need to get into, or are you ready to talk about our potential camp darlings?
Oh, let's talk, darling.
Yep. Let's talk to dogs. And yes, Afton, you are correct. She wants to know, for those of you that are watching, this doesn't do much for the audio only crowd, but have the deer mounts multiplied again. Yeah.
All right. So in the last week, we've been doing a bunch of work around the house in trying to prepare for our nephew to move in with us for college this fall. In doing so, we were moving stuff around, doing some work here and there. Like, you can't tell this where you're sitting, but I'm sitting in the middle of a disaster right here. Okay. Because Renee's like, clear out all your fishing stuff off the shelf you have, reorganize it. I've got some cabinets for it to go in. So I'm just working on reorganizing stuff, and I had ordered these hangers to put the deer mounts on, and we decided to take the one down that was in our entryway and move it down here with the others. So that's
And I knew right what it was when I saw it. I'm like, oh, the middle one's the one that was there at the bottom of the steps there at the entryway. So yep. So let's get on to our Steelers stuff. I just had to bring it up. The live chat was asking about it. They're here. They're ready to go. They're excited. I could tell people were ready to go for this. And why not? Why not be excited for training camps? Let's talk about those potential camp darlings. I'm pretty sure last year I was messing it up. I know 2 years ago I did. That it was the terminology. Had to get it right. What do we mean we're talking camp darlings? So I'm actually going to read what I said was a camp darling from last year's article. And I actually have our list of last year's camp darlings if you'd like to know them. But let's first let me go ahead and set this out here. To clarify what we mean by camp darling, it really comes down to players who are getting more discussion by Steelers fans than anything else. These players are not the superstar players or even the starters. A player can become a darling simply by elevating their expected status for the upcoming season. Whether it be someone who was thought to be among those that were going to be cut and not even signed to the practice squad, and then now they make the practice squad, someone who you didn't think would make the 53, and it looks like they're going to make it, or someone who you thought that they're going to make the roster, but they'll just be a role player, and it looks like they're going to get some significant playing time. Exceeding expectations is the key about what we're talking about. We eliminated players who were starters for the Steelers, starters for another NFL team, or players that were drafted on the first 2 days of the draft. We're looking for, because when you're drafting the first 2 days, you're expected to contribute and to eventually be a starter. So that's summing up what we mean by camp darling. Someone who you didn't expect to be a significant contributor, and they are, whether it's really far down and then being someone who, like I said, it could even be someone who you didn't even know their name, and you're like, this is someone they got to get on the practice squad. That could even be a camp darling. So there we go. Do you want to hear last year's lists?
sure.
Okay. Well, last year's lists, it's so funny to hear some of these names that I'm like, who is that? Who is that? Who is that? But yeah, that's just how it goes. We'll see how it actually played out. Your list was going from 5-1 last year. Chris Wilcox, I think he was a corner. Okay. Calvin Austin III, because we hadn't seen him. Hakeem Butler, Jordan Byrd, and Corey Trice. Those were your 5. My 5 were Jordan Byrd. Remember, he was a running back / kick returner.
Yep.
David Perales, he was with them. He was on the practice squad all year last year with them. Alfonso Graham. Yeah, he didn't last very long. Calvin Austin III. Yeah, I think Graham got hurt. Sorry. CA3 and Corey Trice. Now, we both had Corey Trice number 1. Then he got injured the first padded practice. He was below. I mean, the rumors and the hype around him, to even still see people like, oh, Trice, he was in the running to be a CB1 before he got hurt. I'm like, he never practiced in pads, in team activities. He got hurt at the beginning of the first padded practice. Yeah, there was hype to him, but it was never anything.
Never got to see anything.
But he could have been.
He could have been. Yes.
Yeah, he could have been. So, Rich, you ready to dive in?
Sure.
All right. Well, let's just go ahead, jump right into this topic. And here we go. And you put them in order, right?
Yes. And just so you know, I told you this, I'll tell everybody out there this. I tend to keep mine to younger guys.
Yeah, I do too.
Mine tend to be that because guys that have been around the league for a while, you've heard of them. I tend to think of camp darlings as guys we haven't heard a lot. We don't have a lot of film, though, you know.
Yeah.
So that tends to be where I go. All right. So my number 5. I'm going right out of the rookie draft class.
Okay.
But I'm going further down the list, and I'm going to go with defensive lineman Logan Lee.
All right, you're going with Logan Lee. Did you think that he can be someone that people fall in love with?
Fall in love with. I think he can be the kind of play. He could come in and be the kind of player where everybody goes from saying, "Oh, the defensive line, the defensive line, the defensive line," to, "Oh, we're good. We got this."
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
we need to watch how many snaps Cam gets because he's getting up there and he's he had the injury from last year. Hey, not a problem. We got guys that can rotate through. For that to happen, I think you need to hear more about Logan Lee.
He's someone that you haven't heard a ton about yet, and I wouldn't be shocked if you do. But I also wouldn't be shocked if that's not till next week. And a lot of times with those defensive linemen, you've got to get the pads on before you really start to see what they're doing.
Yep.
So yeah. So I will tell you now, I did not have Logan Lee on my list.
Okay.
Didn't even think about him because I'm really worried that he's just going to get, kind of washed out in the crowd there. But if he does stand out, that's why he could be there. So
that's why it could be a King darling, because suddenly it's like you start saying to some of those other guys, Isaiah who,
that would be nice.
Things like that. So
unless those other guys are really stepping up, we just want quality play. That's really what we want from the position.
Yep.
My first one has everything to do. Well, you'll just know when I go to say it before I even say the name, because all I have to do is say that my first camp darling is fullback Jack Coletto.
I considered him.
And the reason I could see this, because I've actually heard his name escaped me right now. Jim Wexel talk about it on the Steel City Insider. You can hear that podcast every week. They have it every Wednesday at 11 a.m. on the Steel Curtain Network. They have Dick LeBeau for tomorrow's episode, so make sure you're checking that out on our audio only side. He talked about him, and honestly, people are like, "Oh yeah, Connor Hayward. I see him more of." Is he really what you would think of as a fullback for the Pittsburgh Steelers when it comes to Connor Hayward? I mean, I could see him more as the H-back, but I don't see him as the guy that just lines up back there and pummels people. I just don't see that from Connor Hayward. I'm thinking the Derek Watts, the Roosevelt Knicks, okay, the going back for the John Whitmans, those type of guys. If the Steelers are going to be a hard-nosed running team and they want to do a fullback, this could be someone you weren't even expecting that sneaks onto the roster. If he can do that, if he could do a good enough job for the Steelers to say, we want to utilize that position. It's a waste if they're going to do what they were doing under mainly Matt Canada and Randy Fichtner, where they would keep a fullback on the roster to use them 2 to 4 times a game. That's not worth it. But if the Steelers really want to do it in that manner, then I could see him being someone who gets to be really interesting. Just think last year, how much people were intrigued in training camp because Kendrick Green was getting snaps at fullback. Oh my goodness, the media was in love with it. We had to hear about it all the time. We have certain people that we know that Coach Tomlin can't stand in the media that kept asking about it and various things like that. So there's just something about that fullback position that I had to make sure I had it on the list.
I don't know if you remember me saying this from my visit to camp last year, when they would have Kendrick Green working out in camp with the fullbacks and doing drills. You want to talk about a guy that was just, not really giving it much in the drills and could tell he really didn't want to be there. That's what I saw.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
So, and people were all intrigued. I'm like, well, if he's going to be on the roster and he's going to be, I'm like, that on it. They're like, oh, was that his key to the roster? I'm like, that would maybe get him a helmet on game day because the year before Kendrick Green didn't get a helmet all season. He was on the roster, didn't get a helmet. I'm like, it would have to be something like that. So that's why when they were offered a pick for him, they moved on from him. So I just thought the fullback position's one that was interesting that could end up with stuff.
All right. On to number
you ready?
4.
On to number 4. So no repeats yet, it looks like.
No repeats yet. Number 4 for me, snagging one from your last year's list.
Uh-oh.
And I'm going with linebacker David Perales.
I don't even know if I'm saying his name right. I
don't know.
did consider him, but did not put him on my list.
I did because, there's always a linebacker at Camp Darling. There's almost always a linebacker at Camp Darling.
Yep.
And so for me, it's him. He's the guy.
Last year,
he's
honestly,
the guy that's not expected to be one of the top guys, though, but he's going to perform, and people are going to be like, man, how do we got to find this guy a spot, that could be David.
Yeah. And honestly, last year, Nick Herbig, because he was drafted in the 4th round, would have qualified.
Correct.
So he would have fit the criteria, and he was adored last year, and he really came. So I would have counted him as someone from last year that kind of came on. It just almost, the question was he drafted too high? All that good stuff. But yeah, I could see that. I could definitely see that one as someone, because they kept him around for a reason.
Right.
They did. Now I'm trying to remember. Was he Fresno State? Maybe.
Let me look and see. I think you're correct. But I can double check that real quick.
Yeah, I'm just going from memory.
Yes, Fresno State.
Okay, that he could be someone that they cared enough to keep him around, and they didn't have to call on him at all, which was a good thing. So we could see if he steps up and takes that, that what he learned from last year. That's a good one. I will tell you, I did not have him on my list. So this is good. We don't have any repeats. Me, I'm going with I got some low-hanging fruit on mine. I really went with it. And even though he did appear in a game for the Steelers last year, he didn't get a helmet very often. And Steelers Nation still really likes to buzz about him. When he wasn't drafted by the Steelers, ended up on another team's practice squad, the Steelers grabbed him, and that is cornerback Darius Rush. I feel that he fits the criteria, even though he played a little bit last year. But that's why I didn't put him any higher, because I'm like, like I said, he had one game. And people were going to be like, oh, the young cornerbacks, and they're going to fall in love with him. And so I went with him.
All right. Kind of low-hanging fruit. I agree with where you went there. Didn't even consider him.
Yeah.
So...
But my thing is, because he's already been, I feel like he's already been hyped up a lot. And they haven't even made it to camp yet.
Right. I get it. So, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see if he fits the mold of what Steeler fans consider a Camp Darling.
I think he'll either do well and there'll be a lot of hype about him, or he'll be disappointing and we won't hear about him anymore.
Okay. I see that. I do.
Yep. Yeah, so no repeats so far. Let's see if we can keep that with. Hey, this was how it was last week when we were doing Pro Bowls. We both had number 4 and 5 that the other one didn't even have on their list. So we'll see if we keep that.
How do we do when we got to 3?
Yep. Oh, when we got to 3, we had the same number 3 and number 2. We just had them switched, and then we both had the same top guy. Let's see how we do here.
Okay, so number 3 for me this time, going over to the offensive line. What was that face for?
Offensive line. Yeah.
Offensive line. Going with my good friend and good pal, Chaj, would be proud of me. Going with offensive lineman Joey Fisher.
Well, he would definitely fit the category.
Here's why. Because if I remember correctly, I believe he played tackle in college, but has been shifted to guard in the NFL. Now, he's a big guy, really strong, and can move. And to me, he's a guy that I think could show up at training camp, especially in the running game, in terms of, getting out, being able to pull and things like that, and open things up for the running backs. And if you see that, and if you see him, starting to be able to manhandle some guys. You know, that's what it takes as an offensive lineman to kind of become a camp darling. Is you got to be pretty physical, show the ability to move, and I think Joey has the ability to do that. So I put him in at number 3.
Well, that would be really great if you could. It's going to be tough to break into the Steelers roster on the offensive line.
Yes, it is.
Unless they start trading guys away again. But that would be really cool that I would actually have a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers, their phone number in my contacts on my phone. If he would make that, that's pretty cool because I have communicated with him before because
technically he was a Steeler.
Is a friend of mine.
Technically, it was last year because he spent time on the practice squad.
He spent about half the season on the practice squad.
Yeah.
So then I think it was a week.
Was in camp with the 49ers last.
49ers. And the 49ers, you know, I talked to Stats Guerrero about him, and he's like, I'm like kind of surprised that he's not signing with the 49ers practice squad. But nope, he was on a plane to Pittsburgh, and I knew it. I just couldn't say it. I just wasn't allowed to report it, even though I knew it. So no, I didn't have him either. Just because I think it's really hard to be a camp darling as an offensive lineman. But I love that you went there. That's why I gave you the face, because I'm like, I thought it would just be too automatic if I had an offensive lineman because people know that's where I focus. So
I know.
I was trying not to go along with the stereotype of Dave and his offensive line. So my number 3, I went on the offensive side as well. But it was the offensive line. I think people are going to look at how the Steelers utilize him and his athleticism. And there's going to be talk about that third quarterback spot and one John Rice Plumlee. I think that there will be Steelers fans that would like to see him be that guy. You really want to know what he's going to remind me of? He's going to remind me of Duck, of how Steelers fans liked the grit and determination of that guy, and the Steelers should keep him on the practice squad. And trust me, there's going to be talk in the Steelers media about they could keep him on the practice squad. It's like they forget every year the way it works. I remember 2 years ago, Chris Oladokun, he will just get stashed on the practice squad. No, he won't. The Steelers don't keep a fourth quarterback on the practice squad unless they're going to bring something more that helps them in practice when it comes to emulating other quarterbacks. So that's one way that he could be. But otherwise, no. And so I just can't believe so many of the Steelers media every year talk about the fourth quarterback going to the practice squad, and then it doesn't happen. Remember, Duck didn't go to the practice squad. He was sitting at home week 1. He was on the couch. Yeah. And then they called him whenever they traded Dobbs, and then Ben got her. So, but my thing is, when it comes to Plumlee, it'll be really interesting. He's going to be one of those guys that either Steeler fans are going to like, I mean, there was reports during OTAs, he was back there for kickoffs. He was the quarterback back there doing kickoffs, not Justin Fields. Just because he's got a lot of athleticism. Don't know if it's really enough to amount to the NFL, but I could see Steelers fans if they start all of a sudden start hearing, hey, this guy's making plays, and he's not even playing at quarterback. He's going in and doing this, that, the other thing. They're going to love it.
Yeah, I couldn't go with a quarterback.
Yeah, and also it was brought up here by Marky D, Steelers Nation Australia, said, didn't he get drafted by the UFL? Yes, I think he was the 2nd overall pick in the UFL. So bottom line is the UFL holds his rights if he does not if he's not on an NFL roster at the end of the year, is the way it works there. So he's sought after. He should know he's going to have a career with professional football. The question is it going to be in the NFL this season? So hopefully he can. If not, we'll get to hear about him next spring. See, Sherry Richards brought it up. Plumlee can play wide receiver and return kicks. Because I think he was a wide receiver early on in college. So, Steelers have had quarterbacks play wide receiver that never played wide receiver in college.
True.
Like Antoine Randall and Hines Ward. Did he play any wide receiver in college? Maybe he did some, but he was also a quarterback. Slash. Something like that. It would just be fun. It's just one of those storylines that I could see Steelers fans diving into.
Oh, I could see Steeler fan eating it up.
That's why I have it. That's what this is about.
I just couldn't go that route.
I get it. No. I'm wondering if we're going to have anybody that's the same. You ready for number two?
Yes, we are. We probably will before too long. So
yes.
All right, number two. Doing that because I expect this person to come in and go all Rod Woodson on everybody, and that would be Corey Trice coming back from the knee injury.
Corey Trice is your number two.
Yep, because he didn't get the chance last year because he got injured so early on in training camp. So if he comes back and he's fully healthy and suddenly he's pushing to potentially not just make the squad, but all of a sudden it's like, hey, he could be a starter. Oh my gosh, could you imagine that?
Yeah. If they get anything, if he makes the roster, that's huge. That should be more than expected. And and there's so many Steeler fans that have him build up so much in their mind. And I'm like, it's great if that ends up being what he is. But he was a 7th round pick because there was injury concern, and then he got hurt. But I don't think it was the same thing.
No, it was not.
So I really hope for his sake it's not another. I'm not even going to say it.
I want to see him get
that we call him a bust.
I want to see him get the opportunity to be the camp darling. You know what I mean? It's like.
Yes, you're exactly right. So right that my number two is Corey Trice Jr.
Is Corey Trice, yep.
That's why I have his number two as well. Yes. So we finally agree there for that. And it was for that reason. You want to see him get the opportunity that he didn't have last year.
Yes.
That's why CA3 was on the list so high last year, too.
Yes.
This is a trend for me. Last year, I had Calvin Austin III second on the list, because he was a guy that got hurt early. The year before, we didn't get to really see. I mean, you saw him in training camp, but we didn't get to see him in the preseason. And once again, that's what I did with my number two spot, is went with someone who's not in their first year. So, yes, I know I also went with Darius Rush at 4. So I kind of felt like that, another second-year cornerback. But, hey, why not? But I completely agree with you with Corey Trice right there. So anything else you want to say about him, other than it's really about hoping he has the opportunity?
Really, just all depends on how he comes back from the injury. If he comes back from the injury good, comes back from the injury strong, I expect that he's going to get the opportunity to show us he can be the camp darling and make a lot of noise. But, you never know how guys are going to come back from an injury like that, Devin Bush. So,
yeah.
Okay, so we're down to number 1.
We are down to number 1.
I think we should take our break.
Oh, hey. You know what? We could do that. We could take our break. And we're only going to take one break this week. That we're going to try to get back into that a little bit. We're going to take one break. We'll go ahead and take it. We'll come back, do our number 1s, roll into the rest of the stuff we have going on. So if you're with us here, YouTube, Facebook, X, we're not going anywhere. If you're with us here on the audio side, we'll be right back after these messages.
Relax, don't worry, no rush, what's the hurry? Relax, don't worry, don't worry, relax. Relax, don't worry, no rush, what's the hurry? Relax, don't worry, relax.
Rich, you just need to relax. Don't worry. Our lists are fine. We're doing fine here. We're rolling on. Let's count them down. Let's recap our list of potential camp darlings for the Steelers before we reveal our number 1. You went with Logan Lee, David Perales, Joey Fisher, Corey Trice. I went with Jack Coletto, Darius Rush, John Rice Plumlee, and Corey Trice again. Your number 1, Big Bro.
All right, my number one. Before I get to number one, I got to
Okay.
bring this up. So, Marky D should have applied for the play-by-play radio announcer gig. How long before "Hooly Dooly" would become a catchphrase? I
Hey, Marky
agree.
D.
I could
Marky
have gotten
D's
all
got a-
behind. Could have been
he's got
behind
a-
Marky D in the booth.
Yeah, he's got another podcast opportunity coming up. I'll make sure I'll be sharing that here. It was something someone had actually reached out to me about the potential of doing it. Didn't really fit my schedule great, so I tried to move stuff around. And before I did, they're like, "Hey, we found someone else that'll do it." And who did they find? One Steelers Nation. I'll show you, Marky D. He's going to be able to go on there and completely rip on a Bengals guy every week. So we'll make sure that I'll get you all that information for that when that's a little bit more official.
Nice.
And who knows if there's ever a week that Marky D's not going to be able to do it, he's already got someone else that is going to be able to then step in and help him out in that regard. But good stuff there. All right, Rich, we're ready for it.
All right, the same way you did a little double dip, I'm going to do a little double dip here as well for my number one, and I'm going back to the cornerback position and going with one Beanie Bishop.
Yeah, that's because that's the obvious choice. So much so I triple dipped and
I
went with
figured
Beanie
you
Bishop
did.
as number one.
I figured you would.
I
as
mean,
well.
he's the front runner. He's the front runner right now, and I think it's really situational. I might have even gone Corey Trice ahead of him if it wasn't for the 8-game suspension of Cam Sutton. And you're looking at the slot position. So tell us more about why you picked Beanie Bishop.
Because right now he's the guy that's gotten a lot of talk and a lot of hype. You know, you've already got fans getting behind it. I mean, we had people in here on our live chat as we got started on this talking about, Beanie Bishop. Yes, there's already a lot of buzz. I don't know. I all right. So right here, Bishop's too small, doesn't like contact.
Yep.
Okay, was brought up. What is it? What I'm wanting to say that. You know how we kind of say Joey Porter has it? He walks the walk, he talks the talk.
Yep.
Beanie Bishop is that guy that's a small guy. He's the guy on the field that you probably hated playing against because he's a small guy, and he probably talks a lot, and just you're thinking, what is this guy even talking about? But he's always able to back it up. It's like, let's go pick on this guy, and you pay for it. It's like
5'9", 182, according to Steelers.com. My thing is that I just think he'll have so much focus on him, even as an undrafted rookie free agent, because of the Steelers situation. And the fact that it's already hyped up, all he has to do is stay relevant, and he's going to be hyped.
right.
So that's basically what it is. So do I hope that he works out? Yeah, I do. Great. That would be wonderful. Could he just be an undrafted rookie free agent that doesn't make the team, maybe makes the practice squad? To me, if you're talking practice squad with him, I think that's a disappointment based on the previous hype already.
But yes, I'd agree.
But somebody else will be taking a roster spot while Cam Sutton is suspended. So it very well could be someone like the Beanie Bishop or of that regard. So Steelers got a lot of bodies there. They really do.
Yeah, they do.
So I just would say right now, we're doing this on the eve of them reporting to training camp. So it's kind of already based off of who are you could do it two ways. And it's actually a combination of both. Who are Steelers fans already talking about? Who do we think something could happen where they'll start talking about them? That's really what it is here.
Yes.
That's really what it is. So they're talking about Corey Trice. They're talking about Beanie Bishop. And that's why I took the low-hanging fruit and went with 3 corners. They're talking about Darius Rush. So to me, my big flyer was Jack Coletto. They're not talking about him. But I wouldn't be shocked when Steelers fans start talking about fullback if there's somebody that's actually playing fullback, then the Steelers line up and use it. So that's what it comes down to me.
I could talk a little more about how, you going with the triple dip, you're trying to make sure you get a Camp Darling in there because you're just playing the numbers because there's probably going to be a Camp Darling, corner. So you just pick them all.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, I'm doing what the Steelers are doing. Throw enough people at it, something will stick. You could have done the same thing with wide receiver. You really could have.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to bring up Marky D. Says, hey, how about Rodney Williams? See, Marky D, part of the reason I didn't put him in there was he kind of was one of my Camp Darlings from last year.
Yeah.
He'd kind of already fit that. And then the other tough thing is just so many tight ends on the roster.
Yes. I like Rodney Williams. I still want to see him make the roster, but because he played in so many games and was active for the Steelers so many games last year, I kind of felt that was a bit much. I don't know. I'm not saying that he doesn't qualify, but for me personally, I thought that might have been a little bit too much. And it's going to be tough for him with those other players that they have at tight end for him to stand out. But he did stand out last year. I had another one that I considered because you had him on your list for something. I'm trying to remember what list it was. Try and look back. And that was because he wasn't drafted and was with the Ravens last year for 8 games and started 1. I thought maybe that was too much, but that's Jeremiah Moon.
Right.
So I just wasn't really sure how much he qualified. So
yeah, maybe
that for the same reason as Williams. That's why I went, because I had other names, I went with the other names. But when we talk about this here a little bit later on, I wouldn't be shocked or upset if that's what people were doing. Hey, Rich, anything else you want to say about these lists?
No. My list
You know what? Do you want to go ahead and actually stay with it and stick to our time? Do a 5-minute because we might not be doing these anymore once the Steelers report to camp.
I was going to say we might as well get one in because this may be the last one.
Did you have something you specifically wanted to do, or do you want me to pull one from the list that we had from before?
Pull one from the list because
I'll pull one from the list. All right, I'm going to go with. Let's go with Lawrence Thompson. Asked this about a month ago. This one shouldn't take too long, and we discussed a little bit. What is your favorite soda of all time?
I just finished it in my Steelers cup.
Can I guess what it is?
Well,
Does it
I want
have-
to see if it. No. I want to see if anybody in the live chat knows what I would be talking about if I told them that my favorite all-time soda was Born in the South and Raised in a Glass.
Born in the South, raised in a glass.
See if anybody knows what that is.
See what that is.
You talk about yours, but I'll tell you, it was Born in the South, Raised in a Glass.
That's one that I do like. Honestly, I do not drink much soda anymore just because there are so many things in my life that I need to cut out. I don't have to have soda. I don't know that I could cut coffee. I don't know that I could cut sweet tea. Steel Dog 88 got it. Yep. That would be Cheerwine. I was going to say it has a bit of a red tint to it. And
yes, it does.
I don't have it around here. So therefore, I don't have to be tempted by it very much. But as I travel into Virginia, there is one particular Sheetz that has it as a fountain drink. And I know you said it's not as good, but to me, it's still better than nothing. It's pretty good. If I'm going somewhere like the movie theater and you're eating popcorn, there's just something about drinking soda with popcorn. That's like, honestly, anymore. If I'm drinking soda, it's for that reason. And when I'm there with my wife, if we're sharing a soda, the flavor that we agree on is root beer. That's just what we do. If I'm going to pick one on my own, it would be cherry Coke or cherry Pepsi. Okay. Which then brings up the good question, Rich. because I think I know your answer.
Marky D says it's beer for the
It's beer
Aussies.
for us all. It's Foster's there.
Foster's, Australian for beer.
Are you a Coke or a Pepsi?
I'm a Coke.
See, I'm more a Pepsi.
Well, see,
If I had to choose, but you're right. It's the McDonald's Coke where they have the special formula and all that.
but
That does taste better. I don't really care. I don't
when
really
it
care
comes,
too much between them.
but see, it's honestly, though, if I'm not Cheerwine, my next favorite is Dr. Pepper.
Gotcha. See, I didn't really like Dr. Pepper growing up, but then they had the thing, that whole twist a pepper, win a pepper thing, where if you got a bottle of it and you looked under the cap, you could win a free one. It was worth taking the chance on a free one just versus another flavor. Someone said RC Cola. George T said that. I'm like, you know what? I love RC Cola.
I love
You know
RC
what?
Cola.
You probably think I'm crazy, but when it comes to cola, and especially their black cherry cola,
Oh,
I
yes.
want to throw out Fago.
Yes.
Gotta throw out the Fago.
Yes, throw out the Fago. But no, RC, good call. We can still get that around here in some spots. You can still find some RC Cola.
Yep.
So.
And I'm really curious about the one that I would drink, because our father would sometimes bring it home after we would have a trip to New England. Just curious if we have anyone in the live chat that knows it and would drink it, because we used to say it was what KP8 had before he ended up in Philadelphia with the new orange can of Moxie.
I should have brought the sign down from upstairs that I have that our sister gave me. I think it was an old, I think it's Ted Williams for Moxie.
Yeah. Kind of tastes a little bit like cough syrup. Has a bit of an aftertaste, but it does quench your thirst. It's
Not
different
much for sugar.
It's an acquired taste.
Yep.
So, I've never been into Mountain Dew. Not a fan.
I am
When it
when I
comes
go
to
to a
something-
place, when I go to a Pepsi, when I go to a restaurant that's Pepsi, that's typically my drink of choice. Then is Mountain Dew.
Steel Dog 88 says I can still get Moxie. There you go.
I could still get it when we were living in Williamsburg. I had a place where I could get Moxie.
So, but even if I could, I don't know that I would choose it.
Now, Marky D asked about sodas in a glass bottle because he says it tastes different. Now, I will say this: my favorite soda out of a glass bottle is Stewart's Orange Cream.
Yeah,
Orange cream soda, very good.
Birch beer is pretty good out of a
Glass bottle.
Out of a glass bottle. Any
Yep.
brand pretty much is a good one. I will say one last thing as we're done our 5 minutes. I am an anti-diet soda person. The sweeteners that they put in there are worse for you than sugar. So people are like, oh, they think you're doing something better for yourself and you're actually not. That's just kind of me, the way it bothers me if I drink some of the, those artificial sweeteners, because I know some people are talking about that. So, all right. So there we go. Talked a little bit about soda. That was our 5 minutes of non-Steelers talk, which is always good and fun. So now it comes down. We're getting lots of good stuff in the live chat about the soda.
Yep.
But now it comes down to, for you all, who is your Steelers camp darling? Now I'm gonna don't enter in your one choice yet, because I have to enter it here in the live chat for those of you that might be new to this, and then I'll bring up everybody's. Rich, if you had to pick one, so you would say your number one was Beanie Bishop?
Oh yeah.
I would say he's my number one.
I'm most intrigued about Corey Trice though.
Yeah,
Because
I know exactly what
he
you mean.
wasn't. Yes. So.
Yep. So here we go. I'm bringing it up. It is out there now. Your Steelers camp darling for 2024. You all tell me your choice, and we'll bring it up. We've got Kathy. She's already. She always is ready to go. She's got Corey Trice. Okay. Thomas Riley has Corey Trice.
says it's a tie.
Oh, he says the tie. We're ready for the season to come around, Thomas. We're ready for it, because that's what we're going to get from you. How do you say this one? Okay. Marine Misk. Am I right?
Sure.
Okay, I'm pretty close. If I didn't get that, tell me if I messed that one up. He says Trice also. Afton Ford, someone from my list, it wasn't on yours. Plumlee, yeah, I could see him getting a lot of hype. It's funny. Brian Brown says Bill Burr. He's meaning Cameron Johnston. Sorry, too many years in the NFL for him to actually qualify for being. Although he technically has 0 starts. But I do think he'll be a topic. He'll be one of those players that are talked about a lot. Okay, Thomas Eade says Trice. Steel Dog 88 says Darius Rush. Did it come up yet? I clicked on it.
There it is.
There it is. Steel Dog 88 says Darius Rush. Don't know what that one was trying to say. George T says Trice. Valley Ford says Frazier. Nope.
Doesn't qualify.
Second round draft pick. Can't be our camp darling. I do think Steelers fans are going to fall in love with him.
Oh, I think they are too. I think, yes.
Specifically for this exercise, he technically doesn't count. But if you're talking, hey, who is going to be the most talked about player? I could see that being the answer there, if that's what you're looking at. Okay, here's one that wasn't on either one of our lists, but I did think about him. X Concepts 1 says Ryan Watts. I think he's going to be a guy that will. His path to the 53 is special teams for him to get there, in my opinion. Doesn't mean he can't show out as a position player. But Brent Howell says Trice. Gotta love this from Seals Ace Australia. I thought about this, but I wouldn't be able to pronounce his name properly, so that's why I didn't put him on my list. Julius Wells Kolf. I think I might have said that right. I know the player.
Kolf.
I know a good bit about him. He's from Germany. He can be on the practice squad with an exemption. So he could give his salary doesn't count towards the salary cap. An extra guy on the practice squad. They'd be foolish not to at least have him there. So, but if people start talking about him, doesn't mean they can't be signed to a 53 off the Steelers practice squad. Got to remember that. Let's see. Gavin Anthony says Beanie Bishop.
Just so you know, you skipped, but I will clarify what you skipped. So it's Marine Miskey.
Miskey. Okay,
yes,
gotcha.
yes.
Miskey. Okay. All right. John S. says Jeremiah Moon. Okay. Sheriff Richards says Logan Lee, the next Brett Kiesel.
I like it.
People to pick some of these that
I
were
like it.
Yeah. Okay. See, because Brian Brown's like, I was kidding. Middle linebacker from NC State, Wilson, which Afton Ford says, yeah, Peyton Wilson. But guess what? Just a round draft pick. That's on day 2. Technically, that keeps him out of there. He's drafted a little bit too high. It's funny. Marky says he thinks he spelled it wrong. I don't care what you say. I don't know if Tyler W. was answering someone else or his answer was Wilson.
Which Wilson, and none of them qualify anyway.
None of them qualify anyway. Okay. But yeah, there's some young players that don't have a lot of NFL experience that could really come out and show out and be a significant contributor to the Steelers this year. So it's interesting that there's enough names there that are going to be people that could very well make the roster. Now, to go full circle, just in case any more are coming in here late, look at our list from last year that I went over at the beginning of the show. How many of them are still with the team?
Yeah. I hope we do a little better on Tevin. Yeah.
You had 2. I had 3 that are even still with the team. And my third one ended up on your list for this year.
Yeah.
Okay. Just think it. Calvin Austin III still on the team. Corey Trice still on the team. David Perales was on the practice squad all last year, still on the 90-man. These are other guys that people are like, oh, yeah, I forgot about him. Oh, yeah, I forgot about him. That's the thing. They could potential. This is why it's potential camp darlings, is that they potentially could be someone Steelers fans we think they could fall in love with, or it could be like some of these names it's hard to even remember who they were or what position they played the very next season.
Hey, I'm still riding the wave of knocking Jalen Warren out of the park a couple years ago.
Yes, you did. You did. You did. You said Jalen Warren.
I'm just going to ride that pick forever.
and what's crazy was he did not win. This was when we were still behind the steel curtain, and it was who was it there? It was because now it's the Brett Kiesel Award. Well, I can't even remember. It was
Isaac Redman.
Redmond, yeah. And he lost by like 1 vote. That it wasn't Jalen Warren. And I'm just like, instead, it was like UG3 or something like that. That was a totally messed up vote for that award. And that was only because he had been, UG3 didn't even have a very good preseason that year. He was just so hyped during the offseason. And he didn't live up to it. He really didn't. But Jalen Warren, I mean, my goodness, there are Steelers fans that are still talking about him.
No,
should be the number one.
It was not UG3.
Oh, was it? That's not. It was, you're right. It wasn't UG3. He was the year before. Yep. It was Mark Robinson.
It was Mark Robinson.
Who, I mean, he was drafted. Warren wasn't. Warren actually was used. Robinson wasn't until the end of the season. And let's see what happens with Robinson this year. But yeah. Robinson, he was a pretty good candidate. But I mean, you're right. Jalen Warren, he would knock that out of the park. Yeah. So okay. Yeah. Like Gavin Anthony said. Jalen Warren literally, my daughter's been using that word way too much, and I picked on her about it. So sorry that I did that. He literally made Tomlin change his mind about running back by committee. Yes, he did. So that was good stuff. So, hey, tomorrow's the day they report. Make sure you're checking out steelcurtainnetwork.com because it's our training camp confidential. We're going to have more articles than we typically do over the next few days. So make sure you're checking that out to get that. We're going to have trackers. I talked about at the beginning of the show. We'll have a tracker with players reporting tomorrow. Then it'll be trackers during practice to let you know what's going on during practice. Now, when I do the trackers for practice, I like to go with the newest reports at the bottom. So if someone comes in and reads it later, you can read top to bottom and you kind of get it chronologically. So, and it kind of gives you a good sum up for the day. But we have all kinds of various content coming out of steelcurtainnetwork.com. Then we have our whole line of podcasts continuing. For now, the same. We will get some change up of a couple things when it comes to the regular season based on timing. Because, think about it, like last minute thoughts will return for game days during the regular season. We'll get Mike Tomlin press conferences, both post game and his weekly press conference. We'll get those podcasts coming in when the regular season hits again. So because of that, there might be some changing of some times of things. But for now, it's what it has been. I already mentioned about Dick LeBeau being on Steel City Insider. That'll be tomorrow at 11 a.m. You've got Let's Ride tomorrow morning at 4 a.m. on the audio side. Make sure you're checking that out. You'll get Pump Your Brakes tomorrow night as YouTube. I'll be back Thursday on YouTube here live with Jeff and Brian as we'll talk about that whole first day of practice and all that good stuff. And make sure, hey, and if you're interested in some other things around there, check out the entire NFL feed for Fans First Sports Network. Fans First Sports Network has so many other things. We've got more Steelers coverage. We've got across the NFL coverage. We've got other sports covered. Just go check it out. Whew. Rich, you got anything coming for us on the editorial side at all? That we can look for at all, or you don't know yet.
No. Well, we'll see. If I make the determination to show up at camp, you'll get a knee-jerk reaction from camp if I go.
Yeah. There you go.
Otherwise, you got to wait until the preseason game starts, and then you can get knee-jerk reactions to guys whose names I don't know.
That's a good point. So, all right. So what do you have here to close us out tonight, Rich?
Oh, it's been a long break, and it was the kind of break that none of us really wanted. It started sooner than we all wanted it to. It seems to do that a lot of years. But guess what? Break time is over. Tomorrow is time. Tomorrow's the get excited, seeing guys coming into camp. And then it's time to get to work. The Steelers are going to get to work, get things figured out. New offense being put in place. A lot of new faces. Exciting times. The biggest thing for me is football's back. Now it's not just talk about what could be with football. Now we're going to get to start talking about what is with football. And that's my favorite part. Can't wait.
Relax.
Relax.